All right, now we get to the fun part. So we're in Nuke and we've gone ahead and rendered our images out. I actually ended up rendering them at full HD resolution. Here we go. We've got our two renders. This is the environment pass. There's our character pass, now including the chair. And so if we just comp these together, A over B, there we go. There's the result of our renders. And you can see this is pretty noisy, again, because I didn't go too high on the samples. If we go here and look at light number 1, for instance, this is very noisy. So our Skydome light, despite having the portal lights in the windows, we're going to probably have to go and turn up some samples on this for our final render quality. The other lights seem to look okay. Let's go check out the kitchen. A little bit of noise here in the shadows. There's our other kitchen light. And these are some of the character lights that aren't as important for the environment. That one we don't even see. Here's our fill light from the left corner. And let's go back to RGBA for a second. So what are we going to do with all of this data? We've got all these light AOVs. We've got a whole bunch of cryptomats and other AOVs. So how do we put this together so that we can iterate in the comp? So let's zoom out here and I'll show you what a node graph would look like for a typical comp working on full CG assets. So I'm going to have to go through this pretty fast because this isn't main part of this tutorial, but essentially this is a light comp that I've created for this project. We'll start from the back and go to the front. So this is the main spine of the comp, and then each branch goes into this comp, right? So we're going to start from the background black. We're going to have a sky. We'll put our environment over top of that, put our character over top of that. And we're going to add some glow and vignette, film grain, and color grade. And when we're looking at one of these comp trees, what we're doing here is we've got our input. We're going to unpre-multiply all of the channels. I'm going to go back. If you notice, when you make an unpre-mult, it's usually just set to RGB. Go ahead and set it to all so that it unpre-mults all of the channels. These are just shuffle nodes, and I'm going to shuffle out the different light channels. Notice there's something called light default. That's always going to be there. This is where any light that was not set up with a light group will go. So if you forget to put your light into a light group, it's going to show up under this light default. And so we don't have anything here. Let's look at our light number 1. So we'll just step through our lights here. There's nothing on this frame. If we go to the end here, you'll see this is our TV light. There's our kitchen light, etc. Right? And if you're wondering why I've got all these nice labels here, it's because if you go to the node, you can just type in a label. Let's zoom out here. So each one of these lights is split out with a shuffle node, and then we're going to multiply an intensity value, and then we're going to multiply a color value. Once we've done that, we're going to add them all together. Right? So again, we're starting from black. There's nothing in default. Then we're going to add our lights together. Just step through, get the idea. We'll get now emission. That is not a light, but it is, anything that is an emissive piece of geometry will show up here. So I'm adding that just like I would any other light source. Okay, so once I've got all the lights added up, now I'm going to shuffle in the original alpha channel. So just from this read, go all the way down here to the shuffle node, and then this is just alpha in from your A input to replace the B input. The reason I do that is because I don't bother to worry about any of these plus nodes. If you have a solid white alpha on each of these, then they'll all add together, and each light you add, suddenly you're like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on your alpha channel. So you can decide to manage that properly in here, or each one of these doesn't have the alpha hooked up, right? And then once you've done that, you pre-mult the entire result, and then you over it on top of what's behind. Okay, so actually we'll start back here as well. We've got a Skydome. This was our sky that we used for our Skydome light, HDRI. So I'm using a spherical transform node here. I'm going to go from lat long to a rectilinear. I've chosen a 50mm lens, and then I'm just panned it around until I got an angle that I liked. After that, I'm gonna just multiply a color onto it. Okay, so we start from black. I'm gonna over this onto the background. The reason why I always start from black is so that I can use these merge nodes as switches, right? I can disable it to turn it off. So we're starting with our sky. We're going to over our background environment, right? So now we've got our sky out here. And again, we can turn that off anytime. So then we also have the characters, right? And the characters are doing exactly the same thing. And what I've actually done is I've hooked all of these up with clones. So if I go Alt-E, you'll see I've got all these clone noodles going everywhere. Now you'll see one going across here, and that's because I'm using the same multiply for the emission and for light 9, which was that light on the remote control. But anyway, everything else is just going straight up and down. And what that lets me do is whatever I've hooked up, you know, up here, like if I type something in here, it's not going to do anything because there's nothing in that default layer. And if I type it in there and I go down here, you'll see that that's also there. So it just lets you link everything together. So when you're setting light intensities and colors, you're going to be consistent from your characters to your environment. And I like to start with something consistent so that it matches, right? So if we go through, let's put this back to 1. I'm going to hide my expression noodles again by holding down Alt and pressing E. All right, so let's compare this to this. It should look exactly the same except for the window, right? We can, of course, turn off the window if we wanted to and make it look exactly the same. So if we've done our work correctly, there's a little discrepancy there, but that's okay. So if we've done our work correctly, everything should match up perfectly. That's the first frame without the television. There's the last frame with the television. We can see the reflections on his glasses. I thought this looked kind of cool. I will say though, this is the kind of thing you need to judge in motion. And so I'm willing to bet that if I rendered this sequence out, maybe this might be too much. And so then I'd have a choice. Do I go back, fix the material and re-render it, or do I try to fix it in comp? But anyway, I'm not going to worry about that for now. So we've got our characters over our environment, and that matches our simple A over B comp. Let's go ahead and talk about dialing things in. And so multiplying, these are just multiply nodes, right? So if you go to color, math, multiply, that's all this is. You could also use a grade node. You could also use a color correct node. Grade node, you can just slide multiply around. Color correct, you can just slide gain around. It's the same thing. Gain and multiply are effectively the same. And the color is the same thing here too as well. This is just a merge node set to multiply. And you could just do this with a grade node if you wanted, and use one of these for a color and the other one for the intensity. The reason why I'm not doing that is because I find when you use a grade node, you might get tempted to use gamma or something like that. And as soon as you use gamma or some of these other ones, then you can no longer put any of these values back into Katana. So the idea here is that multiply is exactly the same as the intensity of your light. So whatever intensity value I set here is the same as multiplying the intensity of your light by 0.75. So you could dial in, you could say, you know what, I want to dial this up or down. Dial it to however you like it. That's the great thing about this, is it is super fast to iterate on something. If you can sit down and have an interactive session with your director, you could get notes in dailies and get back to your desk, and maybe the note is, hey, bring that up by a half a stop. And you'd be like, sure, I can do that. And actually, when you talk about stops, so that's another way you could do this. You could right click and go exposure, drop that in here, make sure you set it to stops. And now if you get that note that says, bring it up by a stop, there you go, you brought it up by a stop. So the idea being, once you've dialed in your intensities and your colors, then you can go through, dial in all of your lights. When you like it and you've got it approved, you can then go and take these values and put them back into Katana. So if you had a multiply of 0.75, so you'd simply go back to your light here, and you could just multiply this intensity by 0.75. So 24. And then you go and re-render it, and when you go back here, then you can turn that off and it should match exactly what you did, right? So that's the whole idea here. You can either decide to leave all of your lights alone here and leave the colors white and the intensities the way they were, or you can dial it in the comp and then put all those values back into Katana. Again, if you were going to change the exposure, whatever you've set here, this just adds to the exposure value of your light. That's all you have to do. So let's go back over here and step through our lighting choices, right? I'm just going to turn these on and off, right? So this was multiplying our light here, tinting it a blue color. So rather than take you through all of these lights, let's just turn them all on and see what the result ended up being. This is what our render looked like, and this is what we've dialed everything into. Let's go back to the first frame because it's a little bit more dramatic. All right, so that was before, and that's after. So you can see here what I've decided to do is make this interior room more like a twilight, dark sky coming in, cooler tones, and then a very bright light inside the kitchen, so that we get that contrast of two different spaces, and we also get the opportunity of silhouetting our character in front of a brighter background. Now you could say, you know, some of this detail is a little bit busy, and that's okay. We don't have to worry too much about that. So what I'm going to do here is, let's go to the end frame here too. So here's our light on our remote control, which we made smaller, and we get some nice reflections from the television and into the eyes here as well. And the next steps, let's talk about the treatment we're going to add to this entire image. So let's step through that. Right, so if we're starting here, I'm using a glow. This is just a plugin called AP Glow that I got from Nukepedia. So that's before, that's after. So you can see it's doing a little bit of a glow here, and all the kitchen stuff is now glowing a bit. Then I added a vignette. You can make your vignette however you like. This is just a radial on top of a square. I blurred it, graded it, reformatted it, and then multiplied it. So you could dial in how much vignette you want. Again, let's close all this here. So we'll step through. That was our glow. That's our vignette. Then I added a bit of film grain. And the film grain is not going to do a lot on top of our super grainy image, but it's really there just to give some life to the frame. So you never want to be stuck on something that's totally static, especially if there's noise in it. You want to have some moving noise. After that, we're going to talk about a color grade. Okay, so what I did here was I tinted everything slightly warm, changed the exposure a bit, just brought it down a little bit. And now this is the fun part here. So I'm doing a color lookup and just adding a little bit of a curve. But in order to get this curve to work intuitively, there's a trick you've got to do. I'm actually converting my entire comp from linear into Cineon color space, right? So I'm switching to a log color space. And that way, when you do the curves here, you're not totally crunched down into the bottom left corner when it comes to the darks and midtones. So if you looked at it, it looks terrible, right? So let's look at it. You've boosted all of the darks and then apply a curve. And then I'm also lifting dark values a little bit here. And so I'm just using a color correction for that. That is just offsetting the shadows by 0.1. And then with the ranges, again, as soon as you go into Cineon space, it's much, much easier to deal with these curves on your color correction. So this is just set to linear here. Then I just slid this to the right a little bit. And so it actually works much better for your shadows when you're trying to dial that in. And so then we go back from Cineon back to linear. So let's turn these off. So let's see, this is the curves, and then this is the lift. You don't even see the lift here unless you gamma up, right? So let's do that. So that's just protecting our extremely dark values. Bring that up a bit, okay? Take the gamma back down. So you never want to have pixels that are completely black. I should also note that this entire thing, this whole project has been done under ASUS CG, just a standard ASUS SDR display. And then that's pretty much it. So that's, then we're gonna go out to EXR files. So EXR, just leave this set to color space, default scene linear. If we're going to a PNG because we want to, say, email it to somebody, you want to switch from color space to display. Okay, so you set the transform type to display, and then your display is an sRGB monitor, and your view is ASUS, right? The same as this one. And that's going to give you the correct output. So that is pretty much the whole comp. So it's really fun and interactive. You can hit director notes very easily. Once, like I said before, you could put all of these values back into your Katana file and then re-render it, and then you could just turn all of this stuff off, right? And then it's also useful to do that because then in Katana you can publish that as a light rig and potentially pass it upstream to other departments, and they'll have all the colors and intensities that you've dialed in. There's one more thing I want to talk about when it comes to compositing in Nuke. So one more awesome feature that's been added to Katana is something called Nuke Bridge. And so what I've actually done is I've taken this entire treatment portion of the comp and built a Nuke Bridge comp out of it. So let's go ahead and open that first. So here we've got, for a Nuke Bridge comp, at the top you're going to have this Katana reader, and at the bottom you're going to have this Katana writer, and then you need to be viewing this Katana writer for interactive comps. That's saved out already. So once you have this, you can go back into your Katana session. Let's go over here. Go up here to Nuke Bridge, and then over here in Nuke Script, let's go and select our Nuke Script. So once you open the comp, it's going to parse through the script here, and however many Katana readers, it's going to populate in a list here. So potentially if you have a couple of different passes, you can hook them up to your Katana readers. So each pass would go into a reader. So if, say I had a character pass and an environment pass, and you had two Katana readers in your comp, you could set both of those up here. So once you've done an interactive render or a preview render or something, you've got something over here, you're going to select it in this list over here. Now it's got Katana writer over here. So all you have to do then is just either preview comp or live comp. So what it's going to do is it's going to take the image that you've got and then apply that comp to it. You can see the difference here. Of course, it's different resolution, but you get the idea. And so if this was full HD, then this comp would probably work properly, but you get the idea. It's still effectively doing the same thing. So it's just applying whatever you've set up in this Nuke file to your image chain. Right? And you can go ahead and do live comps. So I just thought that was a really cool feature. And you could get as involved as you want. You know, you could, if you wanted to, you could potentially split out all the lights, you know, and do that full comp with Katana readers up here and a Katana reader down there. I haven't tried doing that, but there's no reason why it shouldn't work as far as I can tell. So that's it. Let's jump back into Katana. We've got a couple more chapters and we're going to wrap this up.